When it comes to the listening section of the TOEFL test, students either handle it with ease or struggle a lot. Some common complaints I've heard in my teaching practice include, I can't catch all the details in academic lectures. I know all the words when I read the transcript, but when I listen, I can't understand the speakers. They speak so fast. I understand everything in lectures, but I still make a lot of mistakes when answering questions. How can you avoid these problems? Let's find out. Here are 10 essential tips to help you excel on TOEFL listening. If you're just starting your TOEFL prep, you might want to check out this video first. It covers the most important tips and explains how to improve your listening skills. Today's video is a bit more advanced and is for those who have been struggling with the listening test for a while. Tip number 1, familiarize yourself with the format. When I say familiarize yourself with the format, I don't just mean the general structure. We all know that you're going to hear 2 conversations and 3 lectures, that you're going to have 5 questions for each conversation and 6 questions for each lecture. What I mean is that you need to truly understand how each lecture or conversation is organized. You need to know what to expect, what questions will be asked, what the purpose of those questions is, what skills will be tested, and so on. How can you achieve that? Through practice and analysis. Don't just go from section to section. Instead, take time to stop, think about the question, think about the structure of the recording, and analyze your mistakes. Once you've analyzed at least 10 lectures and conversations, you'll see huge improvements. After having listened to tons of lectures and conversations, I can now pretty much guess the questions that will follow while still listening. Tip number 2, take notes to stay focused. In the previous video on listening, I mentioned the importance of taking notes. But I often get questions about how to do it, what to include, and whether notes are necessary. Taking notes is a must, but how you do it is very subjective. So far, I've seen 2 types of students. Some write down a lot of information, myself included. Others prefer less, because more distracts them. Keep in mind that not taking notes at all is not a good option. Why not? Unless you have phenomenal memory, it's difficult to remember all the details of, let's say, a long academic lecture on geology. Notes help you stay focused and capture important details that can make all the difference when answering questions. Yes, you may understand almost everything or remember a lot, but when you have detailed questions or are asked about tiny details, it's better to have your notes to help you. For example, after a lecture on geology, you might be asked to put the steps of the basal sliding process in the correct order. Or see a question, what factors are involved in the amount of deformation a glacier undergoes? As you can see, it's difficult to remember the answers to these questions, along with a lot of other information if you don't take notes. And remember, the first and most important reason to take notes is to avoid distractions. When you write, you're focused on the lecture, whereas if you don't, your mind might start to wander by the 2nd or 3rd minute. So yes, notes are important. And yes, you should write a lot. But how much is a lot in your particular case is something you should decide for yourself. If you feel that notes are starting to distract you, cut them down a bit. Tip number 3, work on writing speed. This tip ties in with the previous one. If you find note-taking distracting, it may be because you are a slow writer. In that case, practice speed writing. Note that I'm talking about speed writing, not speed typing. There is a lot of advice online on how to improve this. Some basic tips are to hold your pen comfortably, keep letters small, tall, and thin, and maintain good posture. Also, check out the arm movement method. It's a game changer when done right. Believe it or not, your listening score can depend on your handwriting speed, so it's worth preparing in advance. Tip number 4, recognize main ideas versus details. The lectures are designed to overwhelm you with information, but you don't need to memorize every single thing. This is why I told you in the first tip to really get to know the listening section. Knowing what questions are likely to come up will make it easier to filter out what's important. Remember that even though the TOEFL listening section tests your understanding of specific points, it doesn't go into too much detail. So don't expect questions like, what year did this event take place? Tip number 5, pay attention to tone and attitude. Tone and attitude are important in understanding the speaker's intent. So always pay attention to how the speakers are feeling, whether they're excited, skeptical, sad, frustrated, and so on. I sometimes add these emotions to my notes by writing S for student, frustrated, or P for professor, excited. Also, practice identifying attitudes from subtle cues in speech. This is important because you'll often be asked, "Why does the professor say this?" And then a short part of the recording with the phrase will be played. This is where subtle cues in speech become crucial. Tip number 6, eliminate wrong answers on tough questions. As with the reading section, if you're unsure of the answer, start by eliminating choices that are too broad, too specific, or irrelevant. For example, if a question asks, "Why does the professor say this?" and one choice says, "The professor thinks the student's idea is stupid," that's definitely wrong. TOEFL would never make such an answer the correct one. So elimination helps you narrow down your options and find the right answer. Tip number 7, get used to spoken contractions. One of the reasons you often understand transcripts but don't catch all the details in lectures and conversations is that native speakers don't speak like this. "We met in our house." Instead, they might say, "We met in our house." "We met in our house." As you can see, that's a little different. Contractions like could've or would've are common in conversations and lectures on the TOEFL test. Recognizing them will make it easier to follow the flow of natural speech. Also, if you're familiar with contractions, your brain doesn't have to work as hard to process the speech. For example, if you immediately recognize "there" as "they are," you can focus more on understanding the overall meaning instead of mentally expanding each contraction. I'm thinking of creating a separate video on contractions and how they're used on the TOEFL test. So feel free to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to not miss it. Tip number 8, study campus vocabulary. This is a must. In my one-on-one lessons, I always teach campus-related vocabulary because it's so helpful for understanding conversations. If you don't know words like major, residence halls, dorms, bunk beds, electives, transfer, credits, and so on, it will be difficult for you to follow campus conversations and even some lectures. So make sure you study this vocabulary and you'll see how quickly your score will change. This is what we do in our TOEFL course. We'll teach you all the important vocabulary you need to know, such as campus-related vocabulary, academic vocabulary, subjects like biology, archaeology, art, physics, and more. Discuss the types of listening questions and what to expect from each of them, and dissect a complete listening section so that you know what to include and what not to include in your notes to feel prepared and confident on test day. We'll also teach you high-scoring templates for speaking and writing, and make sure you get the score you want in the shortest time possible. I'm leaving the link below. Click on it to join our TOEFL community. Tip number 9, listen to different accents. While the American accent is the most common, the TOEFL test may include speakers with British, Australian, or other accents. Check out what they say on the ETS website. The listening section includes native speaker English accents from North America, the UK, New Zealand, or Australia to better reflect the variety of accents you might encounter while studying abroad. You may not hear these accents every day, so find YouTube videos with different accents to familiarize yourself and avoid confusion. Tip number 10, stay calm during long lectures. I usually have at least 5 one-on-one sessions a day, and most of them are TOEFL related. I've seen hundreds of students, and there are real problems. And believe me, in 60 or even 70% of the cases, a lot of their problems are related to their personal psychology and test anxiety. Once these two issues are resolved, their scores increase dramatically. The lectures in the listening section are deliberately long to test your concentration. As a result, many students panic and miss important points. You should never worry about missing a detail or two. Always focus on the main idea and stay calm throughout. Now you have 10 listening tips that will definitely help you improve your listening score. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for more TOEFL tips and tricks. If you need more guidance, take our TOEFL prep course. And remember, scoring 100+ on the TOEFL isn't rocket science. It's the little things you do that make all the difference. As always, I wish you all a stellar TOEFL score. Until next time, take care.